In 1895, a man built the foundation of a global farming empire inside a horse barn. Not a factory, not a laboratory, a horse barn. In a small Pennsylvania town that most of the world had never heard of. Walk into Lancaster County today and you will find it still breathing. The rolling hills stretch in every direction, stitched together by centuries of agricultural tradition. The Amish communities move through their mornings without electricity. The soil is some of the richest in all of North America. And somewhere at the heart of it all sits a 700,000 square foot manufacturing campus spreading across 341 acres, including a 150-acre test farm, where thousands of workers produce machinery that feeds civilizations. New Holland Agriculture, a name that belongs to 170 countries, a brand trusted by farmers from the wheat fields of Kansas to the vineyards of Burgundy to the rice paddies of northern India. Its products have set Guinness World Records. Its engineers have invented technologies that changed what human beings thought was possible in the field. But none of that began with boardrooms or billion-dollar capital. It began with complaints. Specifically, the complaints of farmers whose engines kept freezing during Pennsylvania winters. One man listened. One man decided to build something better. So how does a two-man repair shop inside a horse barn become one of the most powerful agricultural machinery empires on the planet? How do four separate companies, born on three different continents across nearly a century, merge into a single unstoppable force that now commands a 27.1% share of the global agricultural equipment market? The answer lives inside 130 years of reinvention, of acquisition and ambition, of machines that broke records and men who refused to stop building. Welcome inside the New Holland Agriculture plant, where every piece of equipment carries the weight of a story that was never supposed to be this large. Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. It really means the world to us, and it helps us keep bringing you these incredible stories from the heart of American industrial history. Now let's get into it. 1895, New Holland, Pennsylvania. The town was barely a dot on the map of Lancaster County, surrounded by Mennonite farms and dirt roads that turned to mud when the rains came. It was not a place where empires were born. It was a place where things got fixed. Abe Zimmerman understood fixing things. A master machinist with skilled hands and a sharp eye for mechanical problems, he set up a two-man repair shop inside a modest horse barn and began offering his services to the farming community around him. There was no grand plan. There was simply a need and a man willing to meet it. In the beginning, Zimmerman's operation was straightforward. He sold stationary engines, the kind used to power animal feed mills, to the local farmers who needed them to process grain and fodder through the brutal agricultural cycles of the American Northeast. Business was modest. The farmers were grateful. And then the complaints began. The engines froze. When the Pennsylvania winters descended with their particular cruelty, the water-cooled engines that Zimmerman had been selling would lock up and become useless. Farmers who depended on those engines to feed their livestock through the winter were left stranded. They came back to Zimmerman not with praise, but with problems. Here is the thing about a man who truly understands mechanics. He does not simply apologize and move on. He solves. Zimmerman went back to his workshop and engineered a freeze-proof cylinder tank engine of his own design. He introduced it in 1901. By 1903, the design was patented and the New Holland Machine Company was formally incorporated. That same year, the freeze-proof engine went into commercial production. It was a small invention by the standards of what would follow. 1.5 horsepower. A humble machine built for humble work in a humble place. But that single act of problem-solving established a character that would define New Holland for the next 13 decades. The instinct to look at what does not work and make it better. Meanwhile, the shop was already growing. By 1910, Zimmerman's operation had added stone crushers to its offerings, reflecting the practical, pragmatic nature of the community it served. The New Holland Machine Company did not reach for the stars. It dug its boots into Lancaster County soil and served the people who worked that land. What nobody in that horse barn could have imagined was what was coming next. A single invention that would change the entire trajectory of the company and make New Holland's name synonymous with one of the most essential operations in farming. 1936, New Holland, Pennsylvania. Winter was settling over Lancaster County, and Edwin B. Nolt was doing what Mennonite farmers had always done in the cold months, thinking about the work that would come when the fields thawed. Nolt was not an engineer by training. He was a Lancaster County farmer, quiet and deliberate in the manner of his community. But he had a problem that nagged at him through every harvest season, and during the winter of 1936 and into 1937, he began building a solution in his own workshop. The problem was hay baling. At the time, making a bale of hay required multiple people and significant physical effort. Someone cut the hay, someone raked it, someone gathered it and fed it into a stationary baler, while another person tied each bale by hand. It was slow, labor-intensive, and exhausting work that consumed precious days during a narrow harvest window. Nolt conceived of a self-tying pickup baler, a machine that could be pulled through a field, automatically pick up cut hay, compress it into a bale, and tie it without human hands guiding every step. The concept was revolutionary. The execution was painstaking. Nolt registered his work under 61 total patents over his career, often listed simply as a Lancaster County farmer, because his community's values discouraged personal publicity. He tested the prototype in the fields in 1937. The New Holland Machine Company took notice. By 1940, New Holland had acquired the rights to Nolt's invention and began producing the Model 73, the first commercially viable automatic pickup baler in history. Production started that year, and the factory was immediately expanded to accommodate it. The impact was seismic. A single operator could now bale hay that previously required a crew of multiple workers. Custom baling operators, farmers who worked their own equipment across neighboring properties for hire, found in the New Holland baler a machine that could earn a family its summer wages. In 1941, the Model 75 automaton baler sold for $1,775. Orders poured in. By the time 7 years had passed from initial production, more than 20,000 units had rolled out of the New Holland plant. But here is the thing. Success also attracts attention, powerful attention. And in 1947, a corporation that had grown rich on gyroscopes and defense contracts came looking for what Abe Zimmerman's little horse barn had become. The New Holland Machine Company was about to enter a new chapter, one it had not written for itself. 1947, New Holland, Pennsylvania. The war was over. America was rebuilding. And the Sperry Rand Corporation, a defense contractor whose roots lay in the invention of marine navigation systems using gyroscopes, found itself flush with wartime capital and hungry for places to invest it. Agricultural machinery seemed, on the surface, an unlikely destination for a company steeped in high-precision defense technology. But Sperry Rand's leadership understood diversification. They understood that the same industrial discipline that built instruments for warships could build instruments for farms. They acquired the New Holland Machine Company in 1947. The company was renamed Sperry New Holland. The year of the acquisition was also the year of a remarkable coincidence, or perhaps it was the product of deliberate momentum already building inside New Holland's engineering ranks. That same year, 1947, the company introduced the Haybine Mower Conditioner, a machine that combined the cutting and conditioning of hay into a single pass through the field. Instead of making two separate runs, one to cut and one to condition the crop so it would dry faster, a farmer could now accomplish both in one sweep. The Haybine remained in continuous production for an extraordinary 76 years, finally being discontinued only in 2023. Sperry Rand brought capital. They also brought ambition for expansion. Under their ownership, New Holland began to think beyond Lancaster County for the first time in its history. National distribution networks grew. The product line expanded. Then, in 1964, Sperry New Holland made a move that would plant the seeds of something truly global. They purchased a major interest in a Belgian company called Clays, a threshing machine manufacturer based in the city of Zedelgem. Leon Clays had founded his operation in 1906, beginning as a builder of basic threshing machines before evolving, by 1952, into the manufacturer of Europe's first self-propelled combine harvester. By the time New Holland came calling in 1964, Clays was one of the largest combine producers on the continent. The Zedelgem factory, the one Leon Clays had built in 1909, would become New Holland's center of harvesting excellence. It still produces combine harvesters today. Meanwhile, inside the engineering labs that Sperry Rand had funded so generously, something extraordinary was being designed. Something that would shock the harvesting world. The twin rotors were coming. And when they arrived, nothing in the field of combine harvesting would ever be the same again. 1968, Zedelgem, Belgium. The first development machine sat in the Clays factory, adapted from a Model 985 straw walker combine. The engineers around it were doing something that seemed almost counterintuitive at the time. They were splitting the incoming flow of crop from the feeder house into two separate streams. Two counter-rotating rotors running longitudinally through the body of the machine. Two cages of concaves. First a threshing section, then a separation section, where centrifugal force would do the work that heavy cylinder and walker systems had always done more clumsily. Trials began in corn that same year, in wheat the year after. The data kept coming back positive. Grain damage was dramatically reduced compared to conventional drum and concave systems. Losses were smaller, throughput was greater. By 1969, an entirely new combine design had been conceived around this twin-rotor principle, and testing was underway in earnest. 6 years of development work followed. The engineers refined the rotor diameters. They adjusted the concave configurations. They optimized the cleaning shoe beneath the rotors. They were designing something that had never existed before, a rotary combine that could process crop with a gentleness and efficiency that the old walker machines simply could not match. In 1975, the TR-70 rolled out of production. Twin rotor. The designation said everything. A 145 horsepower Ford engine, a grain tank holding 158 bushels, a grain head capable of cutting between 13 and 22 feet in a single pass. It was the first New Holland combine built on American soil. It was also the first successful commercial rotary combine in the world. The industry did not merely take notice. The industry was forced to reckon with an entirely new category of machine. Competitors scrambled. Over the years that followed, the TR series expanded. The TR-75, TR-85, TR-95, and their successors. Each generation growing more powerful, more capable, more precise. The twin-rotor technology that had begun as an experiment in a Belgian factory would eventually produce over 70,000 machines globally. By 2025, the concept was celebrating its 50th anniversary, still at the heart of New Holland's flagship CR combine range. But success in the field did not mean stability in the boardroom. In 1986, Sperry Corporation decided it was time to exit the farm equipment business entirely. The buyer was a name the world already knew, a name that had been building its own relationship with agriculture for nearly 80 years. If you're finding this story fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us continue bringing you these deep dives into history. We are only halfway through New Holland's story, and things are about to get even more dramatic. 1986, Dearborn, Michigan. Henry Ford had dreamed about tractors long before he dreamed about automobiles. In 1907, his company produced the prototype for the world's first mass-produced gasoline-powered tractor, an automobile plow, as they called it. 10 years later, in 1917, that vision became commercial reality with the Fordson Model F, produced by Henry Ford and Son Company. In 1939, Ford introduced the three-point hitch on its N-Series tractors, a linkage system that transformed how implements connected to machines and that every tractor manufactured today still uses in some form. By the 1980s, Ford's tractor division was one of the most formidable forces in global agricultural equipment. Combined pre-merger sales were approaching $2 billion annually. The dealer network stretched across 1,400 points of sale in North America alone. Ford tractors were everywhere, on every continent, in every climate. When Sperry Corporation announced it was leaving the farm equipment business, Ford saw not a problem, but a perfect puzzle piece. A full-line harvesting manufacturer. Belgian engineering, Pennsylvania innovation, global reach. Ford purchased Sperry New Holland and created Ford New Holland Incorporated, instantly transforming itself from a tractor-only agricultural company into something capable of equipping an entire farm operation from the field to the barn. The combined entity carried $1,965 million in combined pre-merger annual sales. It brought Ford's tractor expertise together with New Holland's harvesting legacy under one roof for the first time. Ford kept its blue color for the tractors. New Holland kept its yellow and red livery for the harvesting machines. Two visual identities, one corporate structure. The arrangement was unusual but functional. A marriage of automotive discipline and agricultural innovation. And yet within 4 years, Ford was reconsidering everything. The pressure of managing farm equipment alongside its core automotive business was mounting. The agricultural machinery market was cyclical and capital-intensive in ways that Ford's leadership found difficult to justify. They had the machines, they had the network, but they did not have the singular commitment that the business required. In 1990, Ford began looking for a buyer for the agricultural and construction equipment divisions it had assembled. What came next would complete the transformation of New Holland from an American company into something genuinely global. An Italian giant was watching, and it had been building its own relationship with the soil for more than 70 years. 1918, Turin, Italy. The Fiat Model 702 tractor, a 20-horsepower petrol engine machine, rolled out of the same Turin plant where Fiat had been assembling cars and trucks since the company's founding in 1899, by a group that included Senator Giovanni Agnelli. It went into full production the following year and promptly won the International Plowing Contest in Senlis, France. It was the first Fiat agricultural tractor and the first Italian-built tractor ever manufactured on an industrial scale. Agnelli was not content with novelty. He wanted tractors to become inseparable from Italian agriculture itself. Through the 1930s, he forged deep associations with Italian agricultural cooperatives, embedding Fiat's machines into the working fabric of a farming nation. The strategy paid dividends across generations. By the end of the 1970s, Fiat Trattori had built over 1 million tractors. 1 million. A number that represented not just commercial success, but cultural penetration. Fiat iron plowing fields from Sicily to the Po Valley. In the 1980s, Fiat continued expanding its agricultural footprint by acquiring Brode, a French company founded in 1870 that had brought stationary threshing machines to farmers in western France since 1895. In 1975, Brode had launched its first grape harvester, the Model 1020, which was further refined into the Brode 1014, the best-selling grape harvester in the history of vineyard mechanization, with over 2,000 units sold in less than 4 years. By 1991, when Fiat's agricultural division, then operating as Fiat Geotech, agreed to purchase an 80% interest in Ford New Holland, the stage had been set for something unprecedented. 4 brands, 3 continents, nearly a century of combined agricultural engineering history. The merger created a new entity, NH Geotech, which would eventually be renamed simply New Holland. In 1993, Fiat completed its acquisition of the remaining stake in the company. By 1996, the new unified brand was formally launched at a worldwide convention in Orlando, Florida, with all product lines consolidated under the New Holland name. Meanwhile, the Zettelgem factory in Belgium, Leon Clay's old manufacturing house, was becoming the global nerve center for harvesting equipment. The plant in New Holland, Pennsylvania remained the North American headquarters and the worldwide center of excellence for hay and forage machinery. The empire now had 4 founding bloodlines, and in 1999 it was about to take one more enormous step, one that antitrust regulators would scrutinize very, very carefully. 1999, Amsterdam, Netherlands. The agricultural machinery world held its breath. New Holland NV and the Case Corporation, a company whose own roots stretched back to 1842 and which carried the legacy of International Harvester's tractor operations, announced they were merging. The price for Case alone was $4.6 billion. The result would be CNH Global, the largest agricultural equipment manufacturer on the planet by many measures, and a direct rival to the titan of the industry, John Deere. Regulators moved quickly. The scale of the combined entity raised immediate concerns about competition. To satisfy antitrust requirements in multiple jurisdictions, CNH was forced to divest several assets. Among them were the Laverda brand, an Italian grain harvester manufacturer, and the versatile tractor plant in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. The Doncaster plant in England, once part of International Harvester's operations, was similarly surrendered. It was later purchased by Landini, giving rise to McCormick Tractors. The divestments were painful but survivable. What remained was a powerhouse. CNH Global brought together Case's dominant position in row crop tractors, tillage, and planting equipment with New Holland's leadership in harvesting, hay and forage, and specialty crops. The product portfolio became comprehensive in a way neither brand had achieved alone. New Holland's dealers gained access to Case's customers. Case's engineering teams gained access to New Holland's innovation legacy. Manufacturing facilities were rationalized across continents. The scale efficiencies were enormous. Between 1998 and the formation of CNH, New Holland had also made several strategic moves to cement its global reach. In 1998, it acquired Bison, a combine harvester manufacturer in Plock, Poland, which controlled approximately 60% of the Polish combine market and had already begun expanding into Ukraine, Belarus, Latin America, and Pakistan. The same year, a joint venture agreement with Turk Tractor in Ankara, Turkey, already producing Fiat tractors since 1967, was formalized, cementing New Holland's presence in a critical emerging market. In 2002, a joint venture in Shanghai, the Shanghai New Holland Agricultural Machinery Corporation, was established, making New Holland one of the largest foreign partners in China's agricultural machinery industry. The empire stretched from Pennsylvania to Pune, from Ankara to Zettelgem to Shanghai. But here is what nobody was talking about while all these deals were being signed. The future of agriculture itself was changing, and New Holland was already thinking about it. The next challenge would not come from a competitor. It would come from the planet itself. 2005, New Holland, Pennsylvania. The original horse barn was long gone. In its place stood one of the most sophisticated hay and forage manufacturing facilities in the Western Hemisphere. The New Holland campus had grown to 341 acres. The main manufacturing facility covered 700,000 square feet. A 150-acre test farm sat adjacent to the plant, a living laboratory where engineers could drive machines through real-world field conditions and bring the data back inside the same day. The plant produced 30 different models of hay and forage equipment: round balers, small square balers, pull-type forage harvesters, disc mowers, rakes, spreaders, machines that shipped to 45 markets around the world. The workforce numbered in the hundreds, and every person working those production lines was connected to a tradition that had started with Edwin Nolt's hand-built prototype in the winter of 1936. Over 700,000 small square balers had been produced from this single site by the time the 21st century was well underway. If you stacked those balers end to end, the line would stretch for thousands of miles. The factory's evolution was not merely physical. The manufacturing philosophy itself had transformed. Under CNH Industrial's ownership, the company had restructured again in 2013 following the demerger of the Iveco Commercial Vehicle Group. The New Holland, Pennsylvania plant was brought into the world-class manufacturing program, a rigorous pillar-based system focused on eliminating waste, reducing defects, and achieving what its designers called zero injuries, zero breakdowns, and zero waste. In 2017, the plant achieved WCM Bronze Level certification, a designation that required verified third-party audits across every pillar of the program. The investment was not just philosophical, it was practical. A manufacturing facility of this scale, producing hay and forage equipment that is inherently seasonal and demand-sensitive, needed processes that could flex without breaking. The WCM framework provided exactly that discipline. Meanwhile, the broader New Holland Agriculture brand was manufacturing at 18 plants globally, supported by 6 additional joint ventures across the Americas, Asia, and the Middle East. The 2,000 dealers and 5,000 touchpoints in the global network represented a presence on every inhabited continent. The problem was, by the mid-2000s, the industry's most respected voices were beginning to ask a question that no amount of manufacturing efficiency could answer alone. What happens when fossil fuels run out? And what happens to the farmers who depend on them? 2009, Paris, France. The SEMA Agricultural Machinery Show is one of the largest of its kind in the world. Buyers, engineers, and journalists from dozens of countries converge on the French capital to see what the industry's most ambitious minds have been building in their laboratories. In February of 2009, New Holland Agriculture brought something to SEMA that had never been seen before in the history of farm machinery. They called it the NH2, a hydrogen-powered tractor. The machine was based on the production T6.140 model, a workhorse already well proven in the fields. But inside, everything that made it conventional had been changed. The diesel combustion engine had been removed. In its place, fuel cells generated electricity by combining compressed hydrogen stored in a specially designed high-pressure tank with oxygen drawn from the surrounding air. The chemical reaction produced two things: electricity to drive the tractor's motors and water vapor as its only emission. No nitrogen oxides, no soot particles, no carbon dioxide. The NH2 ran virtually silently and left nothing behind in the air above the fields it worked. The SEMA jury awarded the NH2 a gold medal for technical innovation. The reaction from the agricultural world was a mixture of awe and skepticism. Awe at what New Holland's engineers had accomplished, skepticism about whether hydrogen infrastructure could ever develop quickly enough to make the concept practical at scale. New Holland pressed forward regardless. The concept of the energy-independent farm was announced alongside the NH2, a vision in which farmers could generate their own hydrogen from renewable sources available to them: wind energy, solar power, agricultural waste, or biomass. Using an electrolyzer to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, a farm could theoretically produce its own clean fuel on site, store it in high-pressure tanks, and run its machinery without ever purchasing a drop of fossil fuel. The NH2 was tested at La Bellata Farm near Turin, Italy, as a pilot for this vision. It demonstrated the ability to perform the full range of seasonal operations: soil preparation, seeding, baling, transport, and front-loader work that any working tractor must manage. In 2017, New Holland unveiled a methane-powered tractor concept that could run on biogas produced by the same farms it served. By 2022, the T7 methane power LNG prototype became the world's first 100% methane-fueled tractor. The scale of what came next would test the world record books. We're halfway through this incredible story. If you're enjoying it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support means everything and allows us to keep telling stories like this one. Now let's get to the moment when New Holland decided to prove its power in the most dramatic way possible. August 15, 2014, Grange de Lings, near Ragby, Lincolnshire, England. The field at H.R. Bourne and Sons Farm had been sown with Santiago wheat the previous autumn, chosen specifically in May of 2014 for what was about to happen. The morning of August 15th was clear enough at its start. The CR 10.90 combine, New Holland's first ever Class 10 rotary combine, powered by a 653 horsepower Cursor 16 engine, was positioned at the edge of the wheat. Pravin Patel, the official Guinness World Records adjudicator, stood ready with his verification documentation. At 11:17 in the morning, the machine began to move. The CR 10.90 was a different category of machine from the TR70 that had debuted 39 years earlier. The TR70 had carried a 145 horsepower engine and held 158 bushels of grain. The CR 10.90 carried more than 4 times the power. Its grain tank held 355 bushels. Its unloading auger stretched 10 meters and emptied at 142 liters per minute. Its twin rotors now measured 22 inches in diameter on the flagship units, 7 full inches wider than the original rotors of 1975. The hours passed. Weather conditions changed in the afternoon, as British summer days tend to do. Temperatures ranged from 64 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Light showers began falling at 5:30 in the evening. The CR 10.90 did not stop. When the 8 hours concluded, the adjudicator confirmed the figures: 797.656 tons of wheat harvested, an average throughput of 99.7 tons per hour, a peak capacity of 135 tons per hour, across 80.2 hectares of field, using 1.12 liters of fuel per ton of grain harvested, with the straw chopper running throughout the entire attempt. The previous record of 675.84 tons had not merely been surpassed, it had been shattered by more than 120 tons, and that previous record had itself already fallen before the CR 10.90 finished its 6th hour. Hedley Cooper, head of Harvesting Product Management, described the achievement as a demonstration of the CR 10.90's unsurpassed capacity. It was also something more. It was proof, empirical, Guinness-verified proof, that the twin-rotor concept that had begun as an experimental machine in a Belgian factory in 1968 had evolved into the most productive grain harvesting technology on Earth. But records in the field are one story. Records in the market are another. 2017, 170 countries. By the time New Holland Agriculture celebrated its 122nd year of existence, the numbers describing its reach had become almost abstract in their scale. 170 countries, 18 manufacturing plants, plus 6 joint ventures in the Americas, Asia, and the Middle East. 2,000 dealers and 5,000 touchpoints globally. A parent company, CNH Industrial, that had generated revenues of $24.7 billion in 2023 from its agricultural and construction divisions combined, with the agriculture segment alone accounting for $18.1 billion. The New Holland, Pennsylvania campus, birthplace of the entire enterprise, remained the brand's North American headquarters and its global center of excellence for hay and forage technology. The workforce there had grown to over 1,000 individuals. The Zedelgem plant in Belgium, where Leon Claeys had built his factory in 1909, had been invested in heavily as the center of harvesting excellence, recently upgraded for the production of the latest CR10 and CR11 flagship combines. Other plants in the North American network told the story of how comprehensively New Holland had moved beyond its Lancaster County roots. Fargo, North Dakota produced articulated tractors for the massive T9 range, capable of delivering 700 horsepower. Racine, Wisconsin manufactured the Genesis T8 series high-horsepower tractors. Grand Island, Nebraska built speed rower, self-propelled windrowers, and stack cruiser bale wagons. St. Nazianz, Wisconsin produced self-propelled sprayers. Saskatoon, Canada made large planting and seeding equipment. Wichita, Kansas turned out skid steer loaders. In 2017, CNH Industrial acquired the agricultural, grass, and soil implement brands of Kongskilled Industries, further expanding New Holland's implement portfolio and giving it new capabilities in tillage and seeding tools. That same year, on April 5th, a New Holland CR 8.90 combine set a second Guinness World Record, this time for soybean harvesting, collecting 439.73 tons of soybeans in 8 hours on a field in Argentina. The global market for agricultural equipment was projected to grow from $172 billion in 2024 to $291.3 billion by 2030. New Holland held a 27.1% share of the global market it competed in, a position built not through any single stroke of genius, but through 130 years of accumulated decisions, each one building on the last. Yet for all its scale, the brand's identity remained anchored to something more intimate than market share figures. It remained anchored to the farmer standing at the edge of a field, looking at what needed to be done. 2024. Global. The agricultural machinery industry was changing at a pace that would have been incomprehensible to Abe Zimmerman. Artificial intelligence, LiDAR guidance, satellite precision, automation systems that could read a field's contours and adjust machine behavior in real time without a human hand on the controls. New Holland Agriculture was not standing at the edge of this transformation watching it pass. They were helping to build it. In 2024, the company's LiDAR-based guidance system won the IMA Technical Innovation Award, a prestigious recognition from the European agricultural machinery industry. The system enabled GPS-free precision farming, using laser scanning to navigate and operate equipment in environments where satellite signals were unreliable or unavailable. For farmers working in dense orchards, under tree canopies, or in regions with inconsistent GPS coverage, this was not a luxury. It was a fundamental capability that expanded where precision agriculture could function. IntelliSense, New Holland's combine automation platform, had been evolving for years, learning to read grain flow data, automatically adjusting rotor speed, fan settings, and concave clearance in response to real-time crop conditions. The IntelliView monitors inside the cab of a modern CR combine displayed not just performance data, but live camera feeds of the grain tank and unloading auger, giving the operator complete situational awareness inside a machine that processed hundreds of tons of grain in a single day. Forage Cam, a camera-based monitoring system for forage harvesters, and corn header automation both earned silver medals at the 2025 Agritechnica Innovation Awards, the industry's most rigorous international competition for agricultural technology, hosted in Hanover, Germany. The T4 electric utility tractor and the T7.270 methane power tractor had both received silver Agritechnica Innovation medals in 2023, signaling that New Holland's commitment to alternative propulsion was being validated not just by environmental advocates, but by the engineering community itself. The CR11 flagship combine, the current summit of the twin-rotor lineage that had begun with the TR70 in 1975, earned a gold medal at Agritechnica 2023. It delivered 775 horsepower. It carried a grain tank dwarfing anything that Sperry New Holland's engineers had imagined when they were refining their rotor designs in the late 1960s. But here is what nobody was talking about loudly enough in the trade press. The challenge facing New Holland and every agricultural machinery company was not technology. Technology was moving faster than ever before. The challenge was something much older and much harder to solve with a new engine or a better sensor. 2025, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The irony of New Holland's position in the 21st century was not lost on those who studied it closely. A company born in one of America's most agriculturally rich counties was now navigating a global food system under unprecedented stress. Climate change was reshaping growing seasons across every continent. Water scarcity was reducing arable land in the American West, across North Africa, and through Central Asia. The global population was approaching 10 billion, demanding more food from the same, or in some cases, shrinking, amount of farmable earth. The pressure on every agricultural equipment manufacturer was immense. Produce more powerful machines, make them cleaner, make them smarter, make them affordable for the small-scale farmer in India and the large-scale operation in Brazil simultaneously. Serve 170 countries with meaningful product. CNH Industrial had announced projections in early 2025 that the agricultural sector would see a sales decline of between 13 and 18% through the year, a correction following years of strong demand. Cyclicality in agricultural markets was not new. Every farm equipment company that had survived past a generation had learned to manage these cycles. But the speed and depth of the correction reminded investors and executives alike that even the most powerful empires in farming are never fully insulated from the rhythms of the earth they serve. New Holland responded through what its leadership called investment in the future. New product lines, expanded precision agriculture capabilities. The methane tractor program, where a single T6 methane power tractor produced 80% lower overall emissions than a standard diesel machine while delivering equivalent performance, was being scaled from prototype to commercial reality. The company's agriculture segment reported net sales of $14 billion for 2024 across CNH Industrial's combined brands. The investor community watched carefully. Shares traded on both the New York Stock Exchange and the Milan Exchange. Meanwhile, the test farm adjacent to the New Holland, Pennsylvania campus continued its quiet daily work. Engineers drove machines through morning fields. They measured, they adjusted, they brought data back inside. They asked the same question Abe Zimmerman had asked when his customer's engine froze in a Pennsylvania winter. How do we make this better? The answer to that question, asked in a horse barn in 1895, had already produced 130 years of machines that changed the way humanity fed itself. What the next 130 years would produce was something no boardroom in Turin or laboratory in Pennsylvania could yet fully predict. Stand at the edge of the New Holland campus today, and you can feel the distance between then and now. 341 acres, 700,000 square feet of manufacturing floor. A test farm where machines that weigh tens of thousands of pounds move through Lancaster County soil just as Edwin Nolt moved through it with his hand-built prototype in 1937. The land looks similar to what Abe Zimmerman would have known. The machines upon it are from a different universe entirely. If you visit the factory tour center on a Tuesday or Thursday afternoon, you will find artifacts behind glass that most farmers will never see anywhere else. The early engines, The first baler designs. The photographs of workers who spent decades on those production lines. The story of a company that was never supposed to be this large, told in the language of tools and iron and ingenuity. What does 130 years of New Holland agriculture teach us? The first lesson is that problems are the source of everything. Zimmerman did not build a company. He solved a freezing engine. Nolte did not file 61 patents out of ambition. He solved a back-breaking harvest process. Every significant New Holland innovation, the haybine, the twin-rotor, the NH2, the methane tractor, began with a specific problem that a specific person refused to walk past. Businesses that stop encountering problems have stopped growing close enough to the people they serve. The second lesson is that identity can survive transformation. New Holland absorbed Ford's engineering culture. It absorbed Fiat's Italian industrial tradition. It absorbed Clay's Belgian harvesting expertise and Broad's French vineyard knowledge. It merged with Case. It restructured into CNH Industrial. Through every single one of those transformations, the brand remained coherent, still anchored to the farm, still named for the small Pennsylvania town where it all began. Companies that know what they are can withstand almost any change in who owns them. The third lesson is that the future belongs to those who begin building it early enough to be ready. New Holland introduced a hydrogen tractor when most of the agricultural industry was still debating whether alternative fuels were worth exploring. They did not wait for the market to demand it. They built toward where they believed the market needed to go. 130 years of operation, 18 manufacturing plants, 170 countries, over 70,000 twin-rotor combines produced, more than 700,000 small square balers built on a single Pennsylvania campus. What is left of Abe Zimmerman's horse barn? Nothing physical, but something essential remains. The conviction that the next problem, solved carefully and completely, is the foundation of everything that follows. The fields are still waiting. The machines keep moving.